These are incredible Marvel characters that were completely wasted in the MCU. To start this off, I'm going with Taskmaster in Black Widow. I was so excited when they initially revealed that this character was going to show up in Black Widow, and they completely squandered it in my opinion. And honestly, I feel like they just didn't get one element of this character right. First of all, the fight scenes of Taskmaster being able to match anyone's style pretty much should have given you some of the coolest hand-to-hand combat in the entire MCU, and they were just kind of generic and boring fights in my opinion. And I don't have any problem with them making Taskmaster a woman, but I don't think the reveal of her and the connection to the main villain of the movie worked that well. Maybe it's because the main villain of Black Widow is kind of just lackluster himself. Just kind of felt like they were trying to make this character so different from the comic version just for the sake of making it different and not actually making the character good. In the Thunderbolts movie, we are going to be seeing Taskmaster again. Whether it's the same person under the mask or not, I'm not sure. It's a completely new design, as you can see, so hopefully they can redeem this character a bit. Let's get an obvious one out of the way with Hulk. I feel like as time goes on in the MCU, they have less and less idea of what to do with this character, because early on in Avengers and even Age of Ultron, I think there's some really great Hulk moments in those films. I actually think Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner is great. I would love to see a solo project with him one day, but even in the supporting roles, I think he's been really enjoyable as the character. It just is so clear they don't know what they're doing. I think where things started really going downhill for the character was in Avengers Infinity War, when they completely nerfed Hulk. They gave him the first fight against Thanos, and I understand he got weakened there, he got beat, and he didn't want to come out. I understand that from a storytelling perspective, but I'm sorry, it was a stupid decision to make Hulk hide for the entire movie, especially since the next time we see Hulk, he's then Professor Hulk, who I think is cool in the comics and could have been portrayed coolly on screen, but I did not care for how they did it in Avengers Endgame. I feel like they play off Hulk way too much as just a jokester or being the butt of jokes in the recent Marvel movies, and they just have no idea how to really give us some great, just brutal Hulk action. Like, give us great Mark Ruffalo being a human Bruce Banner, showing the effects of being a Hulk. That was the stuff I really liked about the character, and they completely zapped it away from us. People have been theorizing that he is going to show up in Captain America Brave New World, because we'll have Red Hulk, obviously. I would actually really like to see him show up in that if he's not underused again. Quicksilver was in and out of the MCU so fast. I feel like if you ask the majority of like casual viewers of the MCU, they would have forgotten that this character ever existed, honestly. He got introduced with Wanda, and she went on to become like one of the most famous and prominent MCU characters of all time, where Quicksilver got killed off in his very first appearance. Listen, I understand why he died, 2 bullets. I don't think that moment's dumb. I actually think that's a very good sacrifice and ending for the character. I think it just simply happened way too soon and we needed more time with him. First of all, I simply feel like we've been robbed of Aaron Taylor Johnson being a pretty big supporting character in the MCU, and now he has to go and be Kraven the Hunter as a consolation prize, I guess. I feel like having him kept around and showing up in Civil War and maybe dying in that film instead, or Infinity War. And listen, I understand that she already lost Vision in Infinity War. Losing Quicksilver in the same movie would be overkill maybe, but I still think he should have just made it a little bit farther in the MCU. I really wish we got to see more of this version of Quicksilver, because the X-Men version was so incredible. I know nobody ever wants to think of Thor the Dark World, and trust me, I don't want to talk about it either, but I do think there was missed potential with Malekith as a villain because of how bad the rest of the movie was and the way they portrayed this character. Him and the Dark Elves in a good movie could have legitimately been like an amazing venture into the fantasy genre of the MCU. They were trying hard to do it in Thor the Dark World, but it came off so bland, boring, and dull that nobody cared about it at all. They got an incredible actor behind the character and made him spend 90% of his lines speaking some fake made-up language, which was a huge mistake. The movie around him, like I said, is just bad, but this is actually a villain that could have been one of the top tier ones if he was surrounded by a good film. While we're on the topic of Thor villains, I'm not going to spend much time on this because we all know Gorr was completely wasted in Thor Love and Thunder. Now, I actually think this is a little bit different because he was a great portrayal of the character, but I don't like how he pretty much is now out of the MCU for good after one appearance where he's overshadowed by all the terrible comedy happening in Thor Love and Thunder. When you're watching Thor Love and Thunder and it cuts to Gorr, it feels completely different than the rest of the movie, but it's also 10 times better than anything else, and he's such a good villain. You had Christian Bale. I would have loved to see him be a returning villain in the MCU. I'm not done with Thor though. I also think Jane Foster, and in particular her becoming Lady Thor, was also wasted in the MCU, because this again could have been such a cool concept for a character and maybe have her show up with the new Avengers. Again, Natalie Portman, an incredible actress. It would be great if she had good stuff to do in the MCU, but no, her storyline in Thor the Dark World is terrible, and her storyline and the cancer thing in Thor Love and Thunder is actually really good stuff and emotional. But same thing with Gorr, it gets overshadowed so much by the film trying to be like some slapstick comedy that this super serious storyline kind of gets thrown to the wayside. Her being killed off in this film just didn't feel like a proper send-off because, like I said, it's a super serious storyline happening with Jane, but the rest of the movie is cracking a million jokes a minute. You can't tell me seeing her and Thor fighting alongside each other in like Avengers Secret Wars, it would not have been a dope scene, because it would have been. Now this one obviously has plenty of time to get fixed in the MCU, but I still think Shang-Chi is currently being butchered in the MCU, because why have we not seen this guy again? He should be one of the building blocks of the next Avengers, and we're probably not going to see him before Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars again. Think of phase 1 of the MCU. You had Iron Man and Iron Man 2 within a couple years, the first Captain America and first Thor films, and then within 3 years they all had more sequels to build up the foundation of these characters in addition to showing up in Avengers. That's how people built such a strong connection to these characters and really cared about them when they all teamed up in Avengers and then Avengers Age of Ultron, and we saw so much of them already. Well, it's already been 3 years since Shang-Chi. We know it's not coming out in 2025. They already have their full slate of Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolt, and Fantastic Four: The First Step. So at 2026 is the earliest. But 2026 in May, we're getting Avengers Doomsday. Then in July, we're getting Spider-Man 4. So unless it comes out in the winter of 2026 or early 2027 between Doomsday and Secret Wars, we're not going to see Shang-Chi again before the next Avengers films. And he's supposed to be a big part of this next new Avengers group. It's not like I'm only sad because we're not going to see the character before the next team-up film. I also just want to see another solo story for this character. I'm not as high on the first Shang-Chi as other people, but I do really like the film. I think it was a great introduction to the character. It has a lot of sauce. The fight scenes are incredible in this movie. Lots of really fun directing. Like, that's another thing. The director of Shang-Chi is now working on Spider-Man 4. So, like, I don't see this film coming out anytime soon. It might not be until after Avengers Secret Wars if we even get a Shang-Chi 2, which would be such a shame if we don't. Let me know characters that you think have been wasted or underused in the MCU in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video. I'd also really appreciate it if you watch one of the videos down below. One is where I'm ranking every new movie and TV show coming out in December by how excited I am for it, and the other one is some of the funniest moments of the MCU.